Welcome to the Reality Check. Psychosis is Real, So is Recovery podcast.
I'm Dr. Ashley Weiss. I'm a child adolescent psychiatrist.
And I'm Serena Chaudhry. I'm a clinical social worker.
And we are the co-founders of NOLA, which is the Early Psychosis Intervention Clinic in New Orleans, and also the co-founders of CALM, Clear Answers to Louisiana Mental Health.
All right. On today's episode, we are going to be talking about the inception and expansion of CALM, how it's integrated into our clinical work at Epic, and how you all can get involved.
First, I think we should talk about why so many acronyms in mental health and that inception of a movie about dreams.
What does it stand for and how is it created?
So literally, and this is my first recollection, I'd be curious to hear like your first memory of CALM. But I remember sitting in an office in a suburb of New Orleans called Metairie. And it was our first office within Symphony of Family Services when we were like first starting. And I remember seeing Vinod Chaudhry launching Mind Map and seeing it on social media and thinking it was like the coolest thing because it was like exactly the community facing part that needed to be there to do a really good clinical service. Because like there's not many mental health services, especially not for first episode psychosis. So it's not like you need to advertise, I have a psychosis clinic. You need to be advertising about like getting people early and getting people there quickly. And I'm not big on social, but I just remember seeing Mind Map and thinking it was so cool. And you remember the bus that had
Mind Map,
and then like internal experience, how it went through the imagine you're bombarded with voices and it got smaller and smaller. I remember seeing that. But anyway, back to the clinic in Metairie. I had a no-show and I was like, how am I going to get money and do the same thing? And how are we going to do this? And I put together a GoFundMe and somehow people wanted to donate. It was so random. Anyway, we were going to Milan, actually, I think that fall.
Right.
Yeah. Not that we go to Milan just to go to Milan, but the conference that we love happened to be in Milan in 2017. But anyway, that was like the idea of having an early detection campaign. When do you first remember hearing about this said early detection campaign?
From the mouth of Vinod Chaudhry, who was visiting us. Oh, but this must have been after that because he was visiting us in the office. Well, we were still with Symphonia, but we were on Bienville. And he came, and it was you, Michael, Vinod, and I. And there were a bunch of berries on the table. And he was talking about berries, compliments of Michael, who's always taking care of us. But Vinod was there visiting. And I think mostly for clinical purposes, but in that conversation, I remember him talking about both the clinical intervention and Mind Map. I don't know where that fits into the whole sequence of things, but that is my first.
Yeah, because that had to have been, I remember the GoFundMe started at the old clinic. And then there was like the prep for it and everything, but we had to have talked about it in one of the plane chats.
He came to New Orleans before Milan, right?
Yeah, because he came for
I met him before Italy.
So that was 2016. So he came to talk in December of 2016 at Tulane's Brain and Behavior Conference. And he visited the clinic and we probably moved. So it was probably, I should look up the old GoFundMe like dates. So that was probably right before we moved into we had moved into the new space. The GoFundMe was before. Because when we went to Milan in fall of 2017, I was talking with Glenn from Red Rock and we were doing those videos.
Right. You were doing a video and you were wearing white.
Oh my God.
And you were very serious.
I think I was wearing a white coat.
You were.
That's so
it
weird.
wasn't a doctor coat. It was fashion.
That's not me.
statement.
No, 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 no. Oh, when I went to visit New Haven
Mhm.
to do like to visit STEP at New Haven, and Glenn filmed me doing this video for the GoFundMe in this
Oh,
weird
no.
hotel room. It sounds, I mean, it was uh, where I was like begging for money. Oh yes, because we put that on the GoFundMe to try to get more funding, and he just did
Mhm.
it as like a favor, and then yeah, and then Milan, and then
Yeah, Glenn came. That was the first time I met Glenn, maybe, and he was there with Vinod, and he was filming all sort of the
oh
note
yeah, they were doing ton of stuff
for
for my map. I
Mhm. And
was
I was
like,
like, "Wow, this seems cool."
this is really cool. We need to have one of these.
Right, and then we went back, and then Glenn visited us in New Orleans, and we
Mhm,
brainstormed, and we looked at the different
mhm.
logos.
Iterations of the big,
Mhm.
beautiful C that I didn't understand for a long time.
But I didn't think it was all that, and now I think it's everything.
Right. Yeah, no, and then I couldn't let the word calm roll, like, it
Mhm.
didn't feel, like, natural, but that's so cool, though, about working with people that do something like, the outside of what we do and getting their perspective. And I remember, like, Glenn, when he visited, feeling he was like, I was walking around the court. I can't do his Australian accent, but he was walking around the French Quarter and the mystery of New Orleans and the water, and it's, like, intense, but you guys have to be, like, approachable. I was like, "Oh, intense and approachable." Sounds that sounds like my personality. And, and and he was, like, really an advocate for calling it calm, and I remember being caught up to, like, "Well, where's the M?" Because it's clear answers to Louisiana Mental Health.
I remember in the beginning, I had to practice saying it to myself all the time in order to get it right.
Calm?
Yeah.
Oh, clear
Clearly,
answers to
Louisiana
Louisiana
Mental
Mental Health.
Health.
Yeah,
Well,
Eliana,
it's calm, but I had to remember what it
right.
stood for. But that's all to say, we worked with this marketing company, and we were inspired by our sister clinic in New Haven and Vinod to create this campaign that came into being about a year after we opened the clinic.
Yeah. I think the coolest part has been to have a really kind of passion project,
Mhm.
kinda like the clinic itself, but that it's been able to, like, grow with input from people that work with us, obviously within marketing and stuff, but, from, our patients, and
Mhm.
their input. And then personally seeing our kids, like, come to all those little events that we would pop up in the city. Remember when we did the red beans and rice cook-off in
Yeah.
Bywater?
Yes.
I think that was like a wake up one morning, bored and trying to get little kids out of the house, and said, "We'll go do a fundraiser and cook red beans and"
But it was so fun, and I think that's right, like, the community spirit of calm is involving everyone, and we would have these little fundraisers, right, at Dat Dog, and our kids were going around putting calm stamps up.
stamping everybody, yeah.
Yeah, and then at Reginelli's, I think, fundraiser
Mhm.
there where they donated some of their proceeds to Calm. So we've
Yeah,
had a lot of, like, yeah,
they do like
fun.
the 10% of the sales.
Mhm. Which is awesome. And I remember in the beginning, it being a little challenging to help people understand the difference between calm and epic, and they would get confused. And I think we finally, over time, with good marketing and repetitive messaging, have helped people to see how the two are integrated. And that being, we have this clinical treatment, which is EPIC, the Early Psychosis Intervention Clinic, and this psychosis awareness campaign, which is CALM, Clear Answers to Louisiana Mental Health. Total tangent. I was thinking about this the other day. I remember getting my MPH, and one of my professors worked on the anti-tobacco campaigns and doing a lot of work around the tobacco industry and trying to find the right way forward with all of that. And he talked to us about social marketing. And I was like, this is the coolest thing to use public health, to integrate public health and marketing. Would that be an amazing thing to do one day?
I know. I did my MPH and I never had that class.
I
I
just
think
to be my professor, and he like us when
yeah.
we're teaching talked about everything he did that he was passionate about. And yeah, it was just linking what we're doing now to that seed. All right. What do you think some of Calm's biggest accomplishments have been over the last
Mm.
many years?
I think um having patients be involved, I think has been the coolest thing, kind of not what that it's been like totally unexpected how it's kind of changed and not what it's great, but it's been great. It's been as it should. And I remember in the beginning us feeling like, okay, are we really doing early detection work or are we doing psychosis awareness work?
Mhm.
And I remember thinking to myself, what's the difference? And now I'm like seeing the difference
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
appreciating kind of those earlier conversations. And I feel like we were really committed to like just like to psychosis awareness, but evolving to like early detection really, I think has been a cool accomplishment because it's like kind of evolved the way that it should based on what we've experienced in the clinic. Like
Right.
that this is what we need to be doing. And that has been like I think an accomplishment of Calm itself. I also, I think personally, just having it become like noticed in the community, and I feel like people are kind of becoming more aware. I think the biggest accomplishment was marching in the parade or being in the parade and someone coming. Uh, we had the big calm signs and someone coming up and hugging my friend that was
Mhm.
holding the sign and being like,
Mhm.
I recognize the sea. You guys helped one of my friends. That's awesome. These are like tiny, tiny details, but big accomplishments,
Right.
I
Right.
think.
They speak to the impact of this whole campaign, which I agree has just evolved with the clinic, has been inspired by patient input, families' input, and that growth was totally unanticipated and so super authentic. And I think that is one of the things that's been most exciting to me. And it's sort of funny, like every point we get to with Calm, I'm like, "Oh my gosh, this is the best." Like, the billboards are the best. The bus ads are the best, these videos, and it makes me super excited to know that there's still something else that we haven't thought of or that a patient hasn't offered. Another thing that I think has been super cool is in the, like, awareness raising, there's been a fundraising component. We have our annual fundraiser In My Mind, and then have, implemented some fundraisers throughout the year. And with the money we're raising from that, we're able to support our patients directly, right? Like helping with tutoring services, helping with application fees, helping for, going back to school, supporting people and getting their artistic endeavors off the ground. And that for me was a totally unanticipated component, but I think a super cool way that this early detection psychosis awareness campaign is
Mhm.
really sort of like embracing our people.
Yeah. Gosh, there's so many things. It's been really fun. Yeah, I feel the same way every time I see the billboard. Every time we do like a new campaign, and I feel like I'm using language that I don't know at all. I try to use marketing language to sound like I
Mm.
know what I'm talking about. Like I said to one of my residents the other day that I needed their copy for the
Mhm.
website. It's like you don't even know what you're talking. It was like, no, the words. We need.
Right, right,
Uh,
right.
I need your bio, please. For the website. Um, but anyway, I always think it's like the coolest thing if you could like envision next year's ideal campaign.
Whoa.
Like,
I don't know. I don't know, but next year's ideal campaign is beyond Louisiana. I really am excited about the
yeah.
idea of expanding the like platform of Calm to other places and spaces. And we've been able to, right, like with share that opportunity with people. And I think
Well, that's only because you moved.
not only, yes, I wanna see calm in California, but I think, right, we've got other people interested in starting something similar in their own states, and so I
Yeah.
think that is really cool because at the end of the day, the more people who are aware, the earlier intervention starts, the better outcomes for all of
Yeah.
us. So
One other thing when I think about this is the lack of comfort with like social media and stuff that inherently I have. You're not a big social
look
media
up.
person, but seeing like all of the people across the world that like are going through similar experiences and how they engage with other like psychosis awareness people that are on social
Mhm,
is really inspiring and awesome. Like to have us kind of join into that, we're not like an individual with lived experience, but sort of represent or a platform for people with
mhm,
lived experience and but connecting with all the other like social media influencers that are people with lived experience
mhm.
was the most unexpected thing. And you realize that it's like so much bigger than, here in New Orleans,
Yeah. Yeah, yeah,
Louisiana.
yeah. Connecting people, right? Because this experience can be super isolating, and I think being able to connect with others both individually and in community is super cool.
Yep. So we admittedly are very late to the podcast world and very late to just recording these, but this timing is perfect to talk about what's on the horizon in October on October 4th, which is our third annual, in my mind, benefit to raise awareness for psychosis, about psychosis. It would be awesome to have so many people attend, especially people that might listen to this podcast and be local. But anyway, it's October 4th at Napoleon House, which is a very historic restaurant in the French Quarter in New Orleans. And we have so many people participating that are patients of ours.
Mhm. Yeah, we just had a Zoom meeting today with our patient artists, some of whom are gonna be sharing their visual arts, some who are going to be, performing and sharing other live artistic endeavors, and it's gonna be super exciting. They're all really pumped to be there and to share and sort of be in community with each other.
Yeah.
So if you're listening to this and inspired in any way, shape, or form, check out Calm NOLA, and you can get details about In My Mind 2024. And there's a link there to buy tickets. And if you can't attend and buy tickets, you can definitely make a donation. All the money raised through this event goes directly to our patients.
And like us on social media. That's the best thing too.
All right. So thank you for tuning in, learning more about Calm and how it's integrated with Epic. We hope you get involved, and we hope to see you on October 4th. Bye.
All right.
Until next time, thanks for taking the time to get your reality check. And remember, psychosis is real, so is recovery.
If you have enjoyed this episode or found it useful, please subscribe wherever you get your podcasts from and check out the website calmnola.org.